So yeah, welcome back, everyone. So continuing from the previous thread of what it means to be nice, really, and what I found is that narcissists trigger the fawn response in a codependent, and it's almost like an unconscious reflex, when you're in the presence of a narcissist. And you kind of go into the kind of fawn response and say, "It's okay, I will do as you say," and da 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 da. Yeah. And it's kind of like, yeah. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a
The
good point.
the fawn response.
That's the insidious thing about the abuse. You feel instinctively that that's your only option.
Mm,
Like, I either fawn or the tiniest thing will set off an explosion.
mm,
It's always this do nothing and compromise yourself or explosion. So obviously, because you don't want to be an explosion after another all the time if you're in a relationship with them. So you have to do the fawn. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, if you live with them, if you want to have a relationship with them, which in most cases you kind of do. I mean, if you're friends with them, if you're family, if you're a partner, what can you do really? If you confront them, they're either going to uh, flip it and blame you, or they will leave you. They will coerce you, they will bribe you with guilt to make sure you submit.
yeah.
It's
And
like
then
this
yeah,
call.
and you're always the one left apologizing and feeling the shame and like, oh yeah, no, actually, maybe it is my fault. And you start to doubt your own sanity and think, oh, maybe it is all in my head and I need mental help.
The projection is so strong
Mm, yeah.
because their parent is who needed help.
Mm,
It's almost like you have to tell them, look, you're treating me as if my response was so irrational and so unreasonable that I must be a crazy person for saying that. And I
mm,
hope you can understand that it is someone who said these things to you in the past who was actually a crazy person. But that doesn't
mm.
mean that everyone who talks to you this way is crazy. Like, let them find their way out of this one.
Yeah.
And of course, you can. The thing is, with narcissists, you have to be very calm. You have to be very strong in yourself if you want to avoid being compromised, because the compromisation is basically annihilation.
Mm,
They need you to self-annihilate because otherwise the only other option is for them to feel annihilated. It's always extreme, one or the other. Like the Sith, only a Sith deals in absolutes, Anakin. And Anakin says, join me or die. If you're not
mm,
with me, you're my enemy.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
in this analogy, you have to be very careful because just because you're dealing with a Sith doesn't mean that being a Jedi is the
The
only good
answer.
option,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what the narcissist wants. The
Mm,
narcissist wants you to be either that or that. There's no middle ground. There's no
mm,
balance. So there's no compromising. The narcissist never compromises with you. Nothing can ever be neutral. But if you can resist the transference is what they call in psychology, when someone feels something about you and you start to feel that too, because you're normal. You're not a psychopath, so you have empathy. You feel what they feel normally.
yeah.
And you'll have to be like, no, I know what you're feeling. I understand, but I'm neutral. I'm a
Yeah.
rock.
Yeah.
So this is where some Wagner tells people to be indifferent to the abuse, because you're recognizing what they are. You're completely clear in your head. Okay, because this is really the main problem. If you know that everything they're doing has nothing to do with you at all, if you really know that, then they can't do anything against you. They can't even dysregulate you. You're immune, literally. Of course, if they keep doing this all the time, day after day after day, over and over, you can't be immune all the time. You can't be perfect all the time. You can't be immune like a god. So what do you do then? How do you cope with a dysregulation when you feel it and you already tried everything else? Like, there's a few options. You can either leave, like you can say, I understand your frustration, but I have to deal with other issues at the moment. I would appreciate if we can continue this discussion at another time. And then you can leave a room, go somewhere else, come back when you're better feeling, after the evil has been cleansed from your system.
Mm.
So while we talk about this, there was this other theme that I had today that we talked about before we did this, that the narcissist basically creates a cult in which he needs you to submit to him. Like the narcissist basically, imagine like a small child, and is very, very terrified, very scared of abandonment. And abandonment basically means you rejected me, you rejected what I said, so that means you hate me. Because the narcissist projects his own issue of splitting onto you. But narcissist is only black and white thinking. Something's either good or bad, there's nothing in between. So you can do all the good stuff all the time. You can be perfect all the time. Once you slip up a little bit in the narcissist's eyes, it's over. Only in the moment is all that exists, because the narcissist doesn't have an identity and doesn't see you as having an identity. It's almost like reptilian brain only. I'm only in the trauma brain. I'm only responding from the situation where someone's abusing and someone's being abused, and there's nothing else. There's only this dynamic. Someone's a prosecutor, someone's a victim. Who is it? That's all I'm interested in as a narcissist, to clarify that. And because I am not sure if you're the victim or I have to make something up. I have to find something, however small and tiny, to prove you're the prosecutor. Because otherwise I feel annihilated. I feel like I'm destroyed. It's over for me. I'm completely abandoned. Because of course the narcissist was abandoned as a child. That's what happened. The mother or father did that. So these are the options basically you have. You know what's happening. You know how they're thinking. You know they can only think in extremes. And they need to prove that you're the prosecutor at all times. And if they can't prove it to you, then they just wait. It's like they're in hiding, like a predator waiting to strike. That's why they call them predators, because they have this agenda of playing tag with you. It's like playing catch, like children playing tag. Here, I touched you, now you're it.
It's so interesting because it does feel like that, like physiologically or in the body, when you're kind of in that narcissistic radiation zone, you do feel like an endangered species, almost like, oh, you almost feel like running. It's very unconscious and subtle, But if you like pay attention to how you like your body responds when you're in that kind of radiation zone, it's in fight or flight mode,
Yeah.
essentially. Because they say the body's stupid, but actually it picks up on a lot that the mind doesn't read.
It's pretty amazing. So people,
Yeah.
that's a very important point you're making there.
Yeah.
People always get stuck in their heads
Yeah.
trying to rationalize what's happening.
Yeah.
But the body already knows what's happening.
Yeah.
You don't need your mind to confirm what you're feeling.
Mm.
It's actually a trauma response. Because if you think of a child, it feels something and then it acts. But the traumatized, the schizoid, the split parent
Mm-hmm.
sees that reaction and says, oh, that's irrational. And the child sees it, oh no, I'm being irrational. There must be something wrong with my feelings. So can't listen to that, I must be rational. And that's actually, it's almost like a retreat, like a cave. You retreat in the cave, which is the head.
Yeah.
And then, of course, because you're always rational, what's there to criticize? What's there to reject about you? You can't be rejected if you're rational. That's the underlying belief system that gets people into these toxic relationships too. They believe that if they are rational, the narcissist has to cooperate and consent. But that's of course that's not going to happen. It's a toxic belief. It's not true. Because we're forgetting there is a child, an inner child there, feels things, gets dysregulated, gets angry, gets whatever. And that's in the forefront. There's actually a reason why the frontal lobe of the brain, if we're talking about the brain in this equation, the frontal lobe is very small. The mammal brain, where these emotions play out, this instinct operates, is really, really huge. It's like 60% or whatever of the brain. And then there's the reptilian brain in the back. This is where your fight, flight, fawn, freeze responses are playing out. And this is completely irrational, completely has nothing to do with the frontal lobe. It's almost like when a person is splitting psychologically, they're also splitting physiologically, like it's part of the brain, it's not even communicating anymore. It's like there is this thing about psychopathy I want to share here with you, that there's psychopathy and then there is schizophrenia. And the schizophrenia thing is basically you have two voices. You have your thinking and then another voice is speaking to you. Now, where is that other voice coming from, if not from your own body?
Superego, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, exactly. The superego is actually the hijacked part of a narcissism psychopath. It's the part that's compromised because it's the judge. It's supposed to regulate everything, to criticize you, and to stop you when you're doing something that gets you socially rejected. So this is why psychopaths are antisocial, because they reject their own superego, which becomes so irrational at such an intense level that the rational part of the brain completely splits off from the rest, from the reptilian brain, the mammal brain, whatever. So that's why psychopaths are very, very good intellectually. They can be very intelligent, blah, 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 but they don't feel anything. And actually, everyone experiences this at some level, according to the degree of abuse they're suffering from. And the reason why I mentioned schizophrenia is because there was this guy, I don't remember his name. He said the thing with schizophrenia is there's a huge wall between the schizophrenic and the super ego. Like, oh, you try to regulate what I'm doing? No, 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 fuck off, away from me. Basically, it's like it's the interpretation of the interject from the parent, or the child says to the parent, oh, I reject you, I reject what you're telling me, because you're crazy, you're insane, everything you're doing is contradicting itself, you're a hypocrite, you don't make any sense, so I must not listen to you. And when the child says, I must not listen to you, parent, it's internalizing that, says, I must not listen to you, inner judge, which plays the inner parent. So they're lost in this infantilized, childlike state. I mean, when we talk about childlike regression, this is basically it. A child that grows up as an orphan, no parents to tell it what to do, how to behave, because they're complete psychotic, these parents, or one of them at least.
Wow.
Yeah. So, of course, we see this everywhere. As society becomes more psychopathic, it creates these situations where people are challenged in their nature. Every time nature tries to express itself, people try to act on their feelings, their intuition, their instinct. Someone is sure to be there and says, that's irrational. Explain to me how that's rational. And of course, because the body is infinitely more intelligent, infinitely, ridiculously more intelligent than the intellectual mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is no explanation. You don't know the rationalization. You want me to write this is actually where people get into overthinking, into writing way too much, talking way too much. Like, I know I can talk a lot, but people talking, like, they spend so much time and energy trying to explain something to you so you understand them, because they're used to operating in this way. That people are committed to misunderstanding him unless they have all the intellectual details, all the check boxes. Check. Okay, now I have nothing to argue with you. Now I can agree with you. Thank you. It's completely neurotic. Like, you probably noticed this with some people. You explain your feelings to them and they're like, okay, but can't you relax, or can't you just chill? Or what about the other person? What about what they thinking and feeling?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the moment something is not explained logically, the other person shuts down. You see the frontal lobe shutting off because you are emotional, as if there's something wrong with you, as if you're mentally ill. Operating upon your body intelligence.
It's insane.
Yeah. How do you experience that? So, do you think that happens a lot in society?
Yeah.
Like, where parents learn this from school, from authorities. There's always someone that tells you, forget about what you're feeling. And we already touched the subject many times, but it always comes back to it in the discussion. So, what's this thing about feeling and reality? Because there's a connection here between what's true and what you're feeling. Because people try to figure out what is true, what's correct. They try to reassure them that their body is giving the correct input by rationalization. And sometimes it works, and other times it doesn't work. And this is actually the area in which we see that those people who are operating more on their instinct, their emotions. There is something authentic about that, something that feels right when somebody tells you something based on what they're feeling. Because you can think anything.
Yeah.
You can play a role, you can act, role play.
Yeah.
But where is authenticity there? How can you find it in the rational mind?
Yeah.
Are there any boundaries there? Like what's real and what's not real? How do you even know? Because this is what the narcissist is struggling with. It essentially, as well as many disorders, they don't know who to trust, what authority, them, the therapist, their friends, their family, themselves, their intellectual mind, or their body. Like it's just chaos. There's no single authority. There used to be an authority like a priest, a shaman, a friend, a parent that's had some kind of tradition to teach you this is how we do things. But now, just do whatever. Like who's telling you now how to do things? There's no tradition anymore. There's no priest. Your shaman now has become the psychotherapist who gives you drugs and who talks to you until you fall asleep.
Yeah.
And your friends, they don't know anything about psychology most of the time because we're living in an anti-psychology society. Like society as a whole actually rejects psychology.
Yeah. Yeah. They call it a pseudoscience. And well, I think Bakunin did say it is a pseudoscience, but
because it's based on something that you can't rationalize only, and you can't prove it based on those details, those facts.
Yeah.
Like if you're thinking about astrology, in astrology you have a sign of Virgo in the 6th house. And you have the planet that rules science, which is Mercury. Like, you know, Mercury fillings, damaging the brain. Like, what's that? The connection between Mercury and the brain, right?
Yeah.
So then there's the intellect being ruled by this planet, by this element.
Yeah.
And it's all about details, knowing the correct information. It has nothing to do with any kind of feelings. It's not about the subconscious at all. It's completely conscious of the thoughts that Mercury represents. Yeah. Like communication, right? Like when you talk to you, it's all conscious stuff. But the psychology is all subconscious, like what they call the occult, the mystery, the mysticism. Like people, they use religion as a replacement to psychology. Like if I can't figure things out, if I don't understand how things work, then at least God can tell me through his Bible what to do, what rules to follow, what traditions to have then. Because I don't understand how I'm supposed to operate. I don't understand what's healthy. I don't understand how to think or how to behave. All of this psychology can give you answers to all of this. But if you don't care about psychology, if you're not inclined, then yeah, you're gonna have to have something. And we are living in a society now where more and more people have actually nothing. Nothing at all. Like religion, most people nowadays are probably like atheists, at least in the West, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
So they don't have religion. Tradition is thrown out the window because the parents are so psychopathic that the children completely reject those traditions. Basically, and then nobody's teaching psychology at school, in TV. If you're lucky, you meet some interesting movie where it's touched upon, and that's it. That's the only exposure that you have to anything that can help you. You used to have friends who can help you. Your friends actually used to know what to do. Like when you have a breakup, when you have emotional trauma, when you have a problem with a parent or a figure or whatever, your friend was supposed to say, okay, let me help you with this. And there was some emotional resonance. Now you're mostly being treated like a machine, like stuck it up, just deal with it. People are so emotionally illiterate, they literally freeze when you give them your problems, not knowing what to do, or option two, coming up with rational responses for an emotional problem, which obviously is not going to work because you can't fix a cube with a circle. Actually, the solution is so simple. People need to be emotionally literate. They need to understand, look, if someone's sad, my job is to make them comfortable so they can be sad. So they can be even more sad and be sad in a way where it feels safe to be vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly.
So I invite them to be sad. Please bring it to me. Give me the waterfall.
Yeah, yeah.
But instead, people are like, no, 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 I need to calm you down. You can't be sad.
Yeah.
Don't be sad. Like, oh my God, like you have a disease for being sad.
Yeah, yeah.
Needs to be cured immediately. How
Yeah.
dare you be sad? No, 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 no. Well, let's fix it.
Yeah. It's so interesting because it's well, not just with narcissists, but with most parents, they basically condition you to completely disown your shadow or
Hide it. Don't even be aware of it. No, no, no. Don't talk. We don't talk about this thing.
Yeah, the negative feelings, the shadow self, you know, the dark side, and you're only allowed one side of you, and that's how you kind of split because you're only allowed to be good and nice and perfect. Yeah,
that's what they call actually the
not
superego
whole.
creation.
Yeah,
The superego is basically your mask, basically your personality that you use so you can be social.
yeah.
Like mask can be such a bad term sometimes, I feel, because people think like, oh, so you mean it's when I'm fake? Well, you're not fake. You have adapted to your environment, which demands that you operate in this way.
Yeah, yeah, especially in social circles and meeting people for the first time. Instinctively, you want to give them your best energy, your best self, because it's all about first impressions. I think we make judgments in the first 3 seconds of meeting someone, you know. So if you come to someone and you're looking gloomy, like Prince Hamlet or something, they're going to think, oh, this guy is like a sad loser, you know. I was at the bar yesterday, and I just went in for a drink, and I sat by myself and started reading. Everyone else around me was like being social, and chatting, and I was just sitting there with my drink and reading. And then someone in the corner basically called me a loser because I was alone. That's how, when you're alone, it's incredibly threatening. It's threatening to be a lone wolf,
It's
because
threatening the social etiquette.
yeah,
Like literally, like it goes back. You have a disease because you're alone.
yeah,
There must be something wrong with you. Has to be.
made no sense because they were all playing I Spy. It was like I spy this, and then the guy looked at me Oh yes, I spy someone, something beginning with L, and then the guy looked over at me and he said, "Oh, a loser," and they all started laughing, and I was like, "Okay,
Imagine laughing back at them. Ah,
yeah,
that was so
yeah,
funny. Thank you,
yeah,
guys. It was a good laugh.
yeah."
Have a good evening.
But it was just like, yeah, I enjoy being alone, and but for some reason that's really threatening to the dominant paradigm. It's very strange.
Yeah, why is it threatening?
I don't know.
It's basically it's their super ego telling them, because it's an interject. People are not just people, they're interjects, voices working together.
Mm.
It's a voice from somebody else that's telling them that you're a loser.
Mm.
It's almost like a possession. But
Yeah.
it's kind of how it works, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we all possessed? Are we just, do we even have a self? Or is it just all made up by other people? Are we just like
Yeah.
what are we? Where is the self here?
Mm.
We will talk about that in
the next part. Yeah.
Do we make one more part, or do we make a podcast?
Frozen. I'm frozen. freeze.
Someone has to decide, and I'm like codependent. No, you decide. Okay.
Yeah. Comment below to say what you'd
No,
prefer.
let's make a podcast. Let's start the
podcast. Okay.
So this is where we finish the series here.
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you.
And this is the last episode for this part. And leave a like and subscribe or comment, and see you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.